curious minds, welcome back to Project Excellence Prodigy, your trusted source for project management insights. Today, we are diving into the cost baseline, a key tool for budgeting in projects. Have you ever wondered how project funds are managed to be available exactly when needed, helping to avoid extra expenses? In this episode, we will break down the cost baseline, explore its main parts like direct and indirect cost, and show how it keeps a project on solid financial ground. Let's get started to see why a strong cost baseline is so important for project success. The cost baseline represents an approved budget that is spread over the project timeline and used to monitor and control the project costs. It serves as a benchmark for tracking expenses and is established by aggregating all the planned cost within the project. The cost baseline is one of the three key project management pillars along with scope and schedule. Together, these are known as the triple constraint. Each baseline covers a different part of the project, and keeping all three on track is essential for the project success. Scope baseline. We discussed this in detail in our previous episode. This outlines the project goals and deliverables, what will be completed by the end. A controlled scope ensures the project stays focused on its objectives and avoids any kind of scope creep, where the unnecessary tasks add the time and cost. Schedule baseline. This is the approved timeline showing when each project phase should be finished. So staying on schedule is crucial because delays can lead to the extra cost and changes to the project's scope. Cost baseline. This is the approved budget to complete the project. The cost baseline keeps spending in check. It helps track the expenses and ensures that funds are available as needed. So when the scope, schedule, and cost baselines are well managed, the project is on solid ground. This balance allows resources to be used efficiently, ensures the timely delivery, and keeps the project within budget, leading to a successful outcome that meets all the stakeholders' expectations. Components of cost baseline. If we see this graph here, it shows the project budget component on x-axis and the cumulative cost on y-axis. The first component here is the activity cost estimates. This is the estimated cost for each project activity, which includes resources like labor, material, and equipment cost, which are necessary to complete the each specific activity within the project. Here on top, it is activity contingency reserve. So these are the funds kept aside for specific activities to address any identified risk that might impact the individual activities. These risks are typically known but have uncertain outcome. We call them known unknown. Next level here is the work package cost estimates. So we know that the work packages are the smallest components of a project within the work breakdown structure and are formed by summing up the activity cost estimates within the each work package. Here is the contingency reserve for the work package costing. This is the control account level and known as the management checkpoint. It consolidates cost for a group of work packages. Cost baseline. This is the approved version of the project budget, excluding the management reserve. It serves as the budget which is used to measure the project performance, and it is the composition of the sum of the control accounts, and contingency reserve. Management reserve. This is another crucial component of project budget. A separate portion of the budget is set aside by management to address the any unforeseen risk or changes in the project scope. This is out of project manager jurisdiction. This reserve is only accessible with management approval and is not part of the cost baseline. Project budget. This is the total amount of funds allocated for the project, including the cost baseline and the management reserve. Let's understand these components by taking a real life project example, the installation and commissioning of 20 megawatt solar power plant project. So in that project, the direct costs, these are the costs directly tied to the project deliverables like material, labor, and equipment. So for our 20 megawatt solar power plant, material, if we talk about, so solar panels, we have to buy inverters and mounting structures. So let's suppose the cost of buying these items is $1 million and labor cost will be workforce cost for installation and commissioning is $500K. And equipment, cranes, drilling machine and transportation is costing $200K. So total direct cost for this project will be $1.7 million. Come to the indirect cost. These are supportive costs that are not directly attributable to specific project tasks. These are like administrative overheads. So if we see here, office overhead, the project office rent is costing $100K. And utilities means the electricity, internet services is costing 10K. And administrative salaries, HR and finance support for the project is costing 90K. So total indirect cost is coming up 200K. Contingency reserve. This is an additional budget added to cover known risk identified during risk assessment. It's part of the cost baseline here, but exclude the management reserves. So contingency reserve buffer for known risk like weather delays, price changes. So here we took the costing around 80K for contingency reserve. So cost baseline here we spoke about just now, direct cost plus indirect cost plus contingency reserve. Another factor is the management reserve. So management reserve is an additional budget to cover unknown risk or unforeseen changes. It is not the part of the cost baseline, but part of the overall project budget. So here in our project, reserve for unknown risk not included in the cost baseline. So we took the cost of this management reserve is 100K. So the cost baseline will be direct cost plus indirect cost plus contingency reserve. So 1.7 plus 200K plus contingency reserve 80K. So it will become $1.98 million. So this is called BAC, budget at completion, cost baseline. The total project cost will be cost baseline plus management reserve. So which will be 1.98 million plus another 100K. So total project budget will be $2.08 million. Next topic is S curve. It is called time phased cost baseline. If we see this graph here, so x-axis is showing time and y-axis is cumulative cost. S curve shows the cumulative budget over time for planned project activities. It forms an S shape, we can see here. It starts slow during the initial project phases and accelerates during the execution phase with high spending and finally flattens out towards the completion. If we see here, during the initial phase, the project begins with planning, design, and initial preparation work, which generally incurs a minimal cost. So spending is slow here, as this phase is focused more on the administrative or preparatory work. In execution phase, the bulk of the project work happens here. So we can see the steep incline, the work like installation, construction, procurement. So these tasks require significant resources and labor, which leads to the high cost. And finally, in completion phase, as the project nears to the completion, so activities like testing, commissioning, and the project closure are performed here. So spending begins to slow down as we need the fewer resources. Why we use the S curve? So S curve is used for the visualization. It provides a clear visual representation of project spending over time, which help stakeholders understand the cash flow needs and the resource allocation. Another benefit is monitoring. Project managers can compare the actual performance against the planned S curve to assess whether the project is on track, ahead, or behind schedule. Another benefit is forecasting. The S curve can help predict the future cash flow and which enable the better financial planning and management. Key aspects of funding requirements in a project. So funding is needed in project in phases as and when required. Funding requirements mean planning for the money needed at each phase of a project. This ensures that funds are available right when needed, which will keep the cash flow steady and avoiding extra costs from holding money too early. Phased funding allocation. It means providing the funds gradually as the project progresses through the different stages we can see here. Like planning and design phase, less money is needed, and the largest amount of funding is usually required during the execution phase when the main work takes place. Timing of funds. It means scheduling money to be available when costly activities happen. For example, if the project's biggest expenses are in 6 months' time, so funds can be arranged closer to that, which will avoid the early cash that could add the unnecessary interest cost. Cash flow optimization. It involves planning the funding so that money is available only when necessary. So this approach avoids holding extra funds too early, which can lead to added cost like interest, helping reduce financial pressure on the project. Cash flow optimization. It involves planning the funding so that money is available only when necessary. So this approach will avoid the holding extra funds too early, which can lead to added cost like interest, and it will help reduce the financial pressure on the project. Flexibility and adjustment. It allows for changes to the funding plan to cover the unexpected cost, which will ensure the necessary funds are available on time and keeping the cash flow uninterrupted. That's all for now. Please support the channel by liking and subscribing. Your engagement means a lot to me. Namaste, goodbye, Sampai Jumpa.